everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bobble Pod. This is going to be a very, very interesting episode. We're going to be talking about wokeness in marketing. Yes, I have decided to cancel myself before we actually get back into the podcasts. But jokes aside, it's not what you think. It's become a topic of interest in terms of how brands are using the so-called wokeness term. But we've got a lot to cover and discuss in terms of its meaning, how brands are using it, are they doing a good job of it, are they doing a bad job of it, and what would I do as Mr. Bobble if I was in their shoes in terms of strategic approach. But as always, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and if you are watching or watching some of the clips, don't forget to follow at Mr. Bobble Official on Instagram and TikTok, and follow me on LinkedIn. Manpreet brackets Mr. Bobble Singh. I've added the Mr. Bobble into my name now, James, on LinkedIn. What do we think?
Well, I like it. I'm going to be interested as to whether or not at the end of this episode you consider whether or not to make it the non-binary MX instead of Mr. Bobble.
That's interesting. I don't know what MX stands for. This is all an education element for me.
Well, Mr. obviously is male, Miss, Ms, Mrs, female, MX is kind of gender neutral.
Okay. So, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
We will see.
I did not know that. So if you did not know that, a nice educational piece, information. I can say it again and we'll cut out. Informative piece from James. But no, I'll keep it as Mr. It's more formal. It's like my mates call me...
resolves that.
Yeah, my mates call me Bobble, but then someone calls me Bobble. It's like, no, it's Mr. Bobble to you. You know, like Lord Sugar. It's like you can't call him Alan. It's like, no, Sir Alan or Lord Alan. But we're not at that level yet where I've got my own, apprentice show. Maybe one day, if Lord Alan Sugar wants to step down, I'll take his place. Nearly became Doctor Who, didn't I, with my viral clip on TikTok once. We're taking a tangent. Anyway, we've got a really good episode coming up, Wokeness in Marketing. So I'm going to let James kick it off, as always, with the key questions, and I'm going to give my opinions and views.
We've got to be briefer than usual, actually, because we've spent 25 minutes of our recording session before we started recording arguing about things. So this could be the first episode where we have a bit of conflict.
Am I going to argue with James? #Jamie. I'm only joking.
We might disagree on things. Yeah. I don't know. This is going to be interesting.
That's the whole point of a good conversation is give opinions. You either agree or disagree. But we're still going to shake hands afterwards. So we're still going to be mates afterwards. But I want to know your viewpoint.
Okay.
And I hope you like my viewpoint. And hopefully we can find a balance.
Yep.
So
hopefully we'll still be mates at the end.
Hopefully.
Healthy debate. It's good. It's something that people are rubbish at doing now because everyone just falls out with each other rather than actually discussing things, challenging each other's views on stuff like that is kind of like an art form that people seem to have forgotten how to do. So let's see how we get on with this. So wokeness in marketing is kind of the headline. But what do you actually mean by that? Because woke has become one of those slightly sort of weaponized words that get thrown about by the right and thrown about by the left, and they all kind of mean different things. And what do you mean when you say wokeness in marketing? I
think there's you're right, there's two definitions around it. And I think when you think of woke, I mean, I don't like to call it far right or far left. I just, I like to stay non-political with my views as much as I can. But woke as a term, when I was reading up about it, was like a new practice that is recommended, requested, enacted or enforced as a replacement for an old one. If we were to put that in a better terminology, it's just an evolution of what used to happen and practices that used to happen into modern ones. But even the explanation, the words enacted and enforced to replace an old one, that I would call it probably would be more of your right-wing explanation. Your left-wing explanation is all about introducing values and equality, diversity, sustainability, and justice. So you see how there's already like two different kind of explanations for it. And I think that's where you begin first, is defining what it really is. Woke marketing has its own definition.
Right.
So woke marketing uses some of those keywords. It says involves aligning marketing strategies with values such as equality, diversity, sustainability, and justice. The goal is to resonate with social conscious consumer bases, often millennials and Gen Z, to prioritize ethical considerations in their purchasing decisions. That's a very, very clean, simple explanation of what it is. But I think the word woke is the problem here. Is that the word that's needed? Because do we just call it modern marketing or inclusive marketing instead? I mean, and then it talks about certain, as we call it, age demographics or generations. So I'm a millennial. What are you, James?
Oh, I don't know. I'm rubbish at this.
How old are you, James?
I was born in 81.
81.
So I'm right on the cusp.
I think you're still a millennial. Yeah.
Probably.
I'm like a young millennial. Josh, how old are you? 31. So you're either young millennial. I think, Molly, you fall in a Gen Z category, don't you?
So I'm a Zennial.
Zennial?
So I'm 98, so I'm on the cusp of millennial. I think millennial ends at 96, and Gen B starts 97, so I'm in the cusp, so I relate to certain millennial things and certain
Yeah,
things.
so Molly is a Zennial, so on the cusp, I think it ends in 1996, so yeah, if you're born up until 1996, you're basically on the cusp of millennial, so I think you're hardcore millennial, mate. I think you're deep into it. I don't know when it begins, but I'm assuming it's 1980, so you're the first leaders. But we are that generation that still remembers as millennials life before technology.
Yep.
So it is an interesting one. But I just find it interesting when I talk about millennials and Gen Zs and talking about ethical purchase decisions. Would you say you make ethical purchase decisions?
I would say that I try to make ethical purchase decisions.
Can you give me an example of when you last tried to make an ethical purchase decision with a brand?
Oh, gosh.
Put you on the spot.
You have put me on the spot. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But I wouldn't necessarily say that I'll spend time researching, but I know there are some brands that I feel quite aligned to, and some brands that I wouldn't feel aligned to.
I can see you've got an Apple phone, so would you say you're aligned with Apple?
Yeah, whether
and
I
have a MacBook. So
whether I like it or not, yeah, like Apple pretty much runs my life.
Yeah. So, but do you like the brand?
There's things that I'd improve about the brand, but yeah, I would probably say that, yeah, I'm probably all right with Apple as a brand.
Yeah. I think this whole idea of, ethical considerations in purchase decisions by millennials, Gen Z, I think is bullshit. Because just recently, Apple got called out by Congo over the conflict of the minerals they use, that it's being put into Rwanda and going into global supply chain. And we all know what's going on with these minerals that we use for our devices and where it's coming from. People won't consider that as part of their purchase journey because there's only a finite amount of these materials and they're coming from somewhere, and most of it from unethical places.
Yeah.
But Apple presents itself as a, revolutionary new tech brand, and that's what they want you to focus on. And that article was on the Financial Times, what I was reading, from April 2024. So this isn't from something a few years ago. This is recent, where Congo has actually accused Apple of sourcing unethical materials in their phones. And the iPhone 16 is coming out.
Yeah.
So I think the only time we're really conscious about things is on the little levels. When we go to supermarkets and we reuse our bags, which is what they used to do before plastic bags actually came in. So we went from not using plastic bags to using plastic bags, realising that had a big issue on the environment, to back to using our own reusable bags, which it's weird.
Isn't it weird now thinking back that we used to go to the supermarket without bags, and they just give you new bags every time. You just take as many carrier bags as you want. You look back now and think like, that's crazy that
and use them as bin bags at home or for rubbish elements now. Would never even consider doing anything else. Even like, I think it's quite funny because it's almost like we're doing a full circle when it comes to retail in terms of how we use products. Is in particular like, we used to have, don't know if the right term is, but we used to have milk delivery drivers that used to come and drop bottles of milk off outside your house, and you leave your bottles out for recycling. So were we more green conscious?
Milk person.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to offend anyone, but I would have called it a milkman. But again, this is what I mean. It's like terminology and wording in advertising and marketing, which is what I want to get into the crux of this talk is it's becoming a fine line in terms of what you can and can't say. And I might just say what you want. Not in like a racial or offensive way. I mean, I'm not saying that, you get racist with the advertising. I'm saying, no, just say what you want to the audience you want to say it to. And if they're your audience, they will understand and they will buy from you. If they don't understand, then they're not your audience. Essentially, it's how you target and segment. And I think as we grow, and the biggest thing, and this is something I hope that it's clipped, is the best opportunity for marketing is right now. Because you have so many platforms, channels, devices, content types to be able to reach so many audiences in a niche way, yet it's the hardest time to do marketing because you've got to be very, very careful about what you say and who you say and how it comes across in fear of how it's going to be perceived. And I think you shouldn't have fear with marketing because what you're really trying to do is sell. And sell well to your audience. Now, there's always going to be an overlap in terms of where that message goes, always, especially with the bigger brands. But I always feel like we're in a very, very amazing time with the digital world, but a difficult time in terms of political correctness. And I feel like politics should be left to politics, and brands should just get back to promoting brands in a particular way. What do you think?
I think it's so difficult this because there's so many layers going on because the whole thing is shrouded in politics in one way or another. So I think ethics, people caring about brand ethics, is somewhat juxtaposed with, is that a word? Juxtaposed? Yeah. With the system of capitalism. Capitalism is about making profits, and making profits normally means trying to get things as cheap as possible. And so those things don't necessarily align. And it's weird that there's certain industries where this is more pronounced. For example, I'm going to use the example of chocolate. So if you go to the supermarket to buy chocolate, there's a little bit of a brand war thing going on there, not about how it tastes, but about proving its origins and proving its fair trade and a fair price is being paid for this. I think clothing's another one where there's a much wider discussion now about sweatshops and where that clothing is made and what conditions those workers are in and stuff like that.
H&M got I had an example which was talking about later. Was H&M was accused of hypocrisy back in 2018 because they had this feminist ad campaign, but they were employing women in Bangladesh for low wages. The irony. It's like
there's a lot of brands that have been caught out with this stuff, and that's what I mean about the fact that saying we really care about people, we really want to pay a fair price for the things that we buy, for the people that work for us, and all that kind of stuff. But then balancing that against the fact that it's a business and therefore it's designed to make money, and making those two things be able to work in tandem when they're kind of they're magnets the wrong way around, aren't they? They're going to kind of repel. They're going to, those things don't neatly align. And this is why I find it really interesting when we talk about stuff like, trying to keep politics out of it, because it is inherently political.
I have this one view, and I disagree. I think politics should stay out of business as much as possible. Now, I have this one rule, and Molly will be aware of this, in the company. There's two things you can't talk about within the office environment. Not that I'm dictating what people can and can't say, but two types of elements, which is social and political issues. You don't come to work to have arguments about political or social issues. I pay you to do a great job for clients in digital marketing. Our social media and our content is all about education and educating people in SEO, PPC, paid social, in marketing. I'm a marketing company. I'm not a company that needs to target to certain demographics. In that case, because I'm B2B, I might be more fortunate or better off or lucky in that sense that I'd have to deal with a wide range of audiences. Yes, my clients come from different backgrounds and we have to be supportive and inclusive of all that. Our employees all come from different backgrounds and have different views and personalities, and we have to be supportive of that. But you'll notice this, and it's not because I'm anti anything. We don't post anything about Black Lives Matter or Black History Month or LGBTQ or Pride, but even mental health or anything. I'm like, if we're not going to do it for one, we're not going to do it for any. The only thing that we do as a company, because we know our company works in a digital world and has a carbon footprint, and I'm a green ambassador, people know I was at COP28, etc., is we support the Rainforest Trust. Now, I wouldn't say the Rainforest Trust is a political or a social issue. It could be a social issue in the sense that, but it's all about protecting the world and environment that we're on. And I think we should all be doing that. And when the Amazon rainforest was on fire, that's when I took action from actually another friend of mine, a business owner that was involved, and said, Andy, you can take an action this way by joining Rainforest Trust. And we protected, nearly 3,000 acres of land from the profits. And that's something I'm happy to share and show about and encourage more businesses to do that, because, it directly impacts not just one person, everybody in this world. So, yes, I think I just want Bobble and even the Mr. Bobble brand to focus on real topics and issues around digital marketing. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to get millions of followers, because I'm not interested, even if I get one. I had a conversation, I think it was with you and Josh before, about whether this is the right thing to take, the right step to take with Mr. Bobble as a brand. I wasn't sure. We've had many meetings before we relaunched things throughout summer. But it all became worthwhile from a message I got on LinkedIn when I talked about the first episode that we recorded a while back now in terms of where I've been. I'm not going to mention this person's name, and I didn't think I'd actually mention this, is the message I got back was actually quite heartfelt, because they reached out to me and sent me a message saying that how, not trying to blow my eyes, but they found it very inspirational. They found me inspirational, and then said, how did you deal with that? Because you've clearly dealt with it and come out the other side. At which point I went back to that person and said, here's my contact details. I would give you the contact of the people I spoke to and helped out with. So to me, even coming back and that one person out of all my 6,500, 7,000 connections on LinkedIn messaging made it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Because I know I've made a difference to at least one person. And I think as a business owner, and I've gone off a bit of a tangent here, is you've got to, as long as you're making a positive difference, that's the key thing. So to me, this whole thing has been worthwhile because it's made a positive impact. And that whole episode made a positive impact on one person to reach out, which I'm now helping and looking to help in the same way.
Okay. This is such an interesting topic. And I'm going to go back to what you were saying before about brands, which I'm not sure if there's a phrase for it, but I'm going to call it almost kind of bandwagon marketing. So the idea of jumping on stuff like Black History Month, Pride Month, things like that, where we see brands who change their logo, change their branding to reflect those kind of things. You say you don't get involved in any of that stuff with Bobble. I don't either with any of the stuff that I put out. I stay away from that stuff just because I've become quite suspicious of brands that do. I'm kind of like, you don't need to tell me that you care about this stuff. Go out and make a difference. Do something. That's kind of what I think it should be about. And it has become kind of like a marketing ploy in itself, and one that for me, I kind of, I'm quite analytical in the way that I look at stuff. I'm really, really suspicious of. I don't know if that necessarily crosses into what we're talking about in terms of wokeness in marketing then. So give us some examples of I guess I'm talking about marketing campaigns that you feel fall on the wrong side of that line.
I think the biggest one was Bud Light. I think that was last year.
Vaguely remember this.
Yeah. So, by the way, because they were trying to target the LGBT community, and I want to say, great campaign, poorly executed though. Poorly executed. I think when you think of the damage that was done to their profit and their position as a brand in America and south of the USA in terms of the southern states, I mean, the backlash was really, really bad. It's quite interesting because, like, that campaign, it's like, if I was to do that campaign, I would do it so differently. The campaign, in terms of the messaging, would be the exact same. But then, if you're going to target an audience, and I think this is what the big brands do badly, and most of them do badly with wokeness in marketing, in terms of jumping on that bandwagon, in terms of Bud Light wanting to appeal to a certain demographic. Right, that's a clear strategic approach. Right, the demographic they want to appear to was people that fit within the LGBT or LGBTQ plus community. I hope I'm saying that right. So what you do is then you put yourself at the Pride March. You get involved in more Pride communities. If you wanted to create a custom can, and there's a lot of brands that have done customizations and done this right, if you wanted to create a custom can, then allow people to order that custom can. And it's nothing wrong with brands trying to target different communities and different types of audiences that fit in certain different demographics. But if 90% of your audience is the big circle, and then you focus on just what is 2 to 3% of who your potential audience is going to be, and then you alienate the 90%, because you send them the same message that you send into the 2-3%, they're not going to understand the message. There's going to be a backlash. They're going to be like, no, this is not what I'm used to as a brand message or an affinity to you as a brand that I'm used to, and this goes against what I might feel. Some people liked it, to the point where there were videos online of people buying the cans and just pouring them out and doing it, and I thought that was ridiculous, by the way. The only person that benefited then was Bud Light, really. But it was so poorly executed, it was actually did damage to that community, to the Pride LGBTQ community, because it created more division. When you really think about what happened and all the content that came out, Bud Light actually didn't do any favours to that community. And I felt for that community when I was like, this is a great campaign. But they've done such a bad job with execution and not thinking about just basic data segmentation that you've alienated your main customers, you lost billions of pounds in revenue, and you've negatively impacted the community you're trying to go after anyways in a bad light. And that's unfair to them. What they could have done simply is segment that audience and get involved with them, like I said, at Pride Element, and send them to a dedicated branded landing page with that influencer, I forget her name or their name, and, create a community where they could, do, well, when you buy this, we'll be investing into XYZ to support the community, and you can have your own branded elements, get your name and stuff on it as well. They could have done it instead of changing every single product that they pushed out and the can design for every single audience. Now, taking that brand as an example and looking at someone like Coca-Cola, they did it right. They were putting everyone's names. Remember Share a Coke campaign? Did that get any backlash? No, they did it right. And what they did for inclusivity for people, I have a bottle at home that says Share a Coke with Bobble, right? I have it. There's a picture on my Instagram. I'll try and see if I can get it up. But they did it right. They had a lot of names, but they noticed very quickly they couldn't get every single name from every different background community, because my name's Manpreet. And no offense, every time I go to a theme park or somewhere and you get all those, name plaques, Manpreet's not going to be there. Whereas it took years for FIFA to put the name Singh on as a manager. You know what I mean? That's inclusivity. That's what people want to see. But what they did is went round with their trucks and vending machines and allowed people to put their own name in and print it. Which is really, really good.
You could order them online as well, couldn't you?
Yeah,
you could and order it. It was clever. It was clever. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. But that's why I have this example, because I saw this ad just recently, and I ordered my own Mr. Bobble Toblerone. Now I know you call it. What do you call it? Go on.
I call it Toblerone, like the rest of the world.
I've always called it Toblerone. If I've gone to the airport, everyone's like, man, I pick up a Toblerone. Maybe it's just my Yorkshire, but we're all Yorkshire here.
All for inclusivity on this, and you should pronounce it how you want to pronounce it, but you're wrong.
Am I wrong? I want to clip this, and we're going to do a poll. Am I wrong? Is it Toblerone or Toblerone?
Can someone get Switzerland on the phone and we'll settle this?
Yeah, it's called Switzerland.
It's Toblerone.
I'm gonna find out.
It's always been Toblerone.
Not in the stores with names on, but if you want to have your own name and something on it, then maybe we open it up afterwards and sign it. I think that'd be pretty cool. I ordered 2, one to eat, but one to keep.
Right.
Yeah. So I love stuff like this. I love these kind of campaigns. I mean, you can put whatever you want on there. You could even put something offensive on there. I wouldn't highly recommend doing that, and I don't think they'll probably ship that out. But there we go. Leave it right there for everyone to see, Mr. Ball Desk. But that's a good way of inclusivity and getting people included into your brand where you want to do it. Now, it's interesting. I think this is great. What Coca-Cola did was great, but what Bud Light did was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Not in terms of the campaign and targeting that community, but the execution. And because when I look at it, I'm thinking, as I said, you alienated your main customers, you create a division with that sub-community, which I think was the biggest impact from that whole campaign, is when you saw people actively showing, their disagreement towards that community. And I think that's harsh for that community. Really, what did they do wrong? Nothing. And it kind of helps push that kind of movement back a bit, if that makes sense. I don't think they really thought about this. And I'm not sure, I think a few people in the marketing department were potentially let go or reassigned. And rightly so, because it just came down to basic data segmentation. Yeah. It's like you did not really think strategically enough in terms of how to execute that campaign. And this is what I mean is they jumped on the bandwagon, probably got too excited about it, and then realised, no, you're alienating 90% of your actual customers. Target those customers in a niche specific way, which digital marketing allows you to do. It allows you to target and bring different types of communities, different types of audiences and customers in to be part of your brand. And there's nothing wrong with that. We should all be enjoying Bud Light, regardless of your background, race, religion, gender, or how you feel. But how I would be expected to target compared to somebody else would be completely different, and that's what they got wrong.
Okay.
Sorry for having a go at Bud Light, but you got it wrong.
It's a terrible beer anyway, it's fine.
Yeah.
So what...
I mean, not to say that I drink because I'm Sikh and my parents might watch this, but yeah, it's all right.
All right, so you're right in terms of the fact it's a badly executed campaign with very little it feels like there was very little thought to outcomes before they kind of started with it. So what about if you said earlier that you don't want the office here to get involved and people to be kind of getting onto socio-political things. What if you have a client that comes to you saying, we've got this idea for a campaign, we want to do something around something which is very socio-political?
Yeah. Well, we would do what we always do. We would highlight the pros and cons and how to execute it and talk about what I've just talked about in terms of, right, if you want to do this campaign, why do you want to do this campaign? What's the why? What's the objective? What's the reasonality? Why do you want to do this? What's the opportunity for the business, right? Then we're going to say, right, because this falls within political social spectrum, there's guidelines within Facebook, Google, in terms of what you can and can't say as well. So you've got to be careful about that. So we have to educate our client in terms of how they use digital marketing for that particular campaign. But then it has to be, as you said, results oriented. What do you want to achieve from this campaign? And how do we make sure that aligns with the main brand but doesn't alienate all the audiences, the main audiences and sub-audiences? How do we do a targeted campaign to just this user base? And you can do that very, very effectively. So if a client comes up to us for stuff like that, that's not a problem at all. But we would guide them in an effective way so that we don't have a Bud Light situation. And saying, oh, this is great, you should push this out to everyone. It's like, no, right, break, plan, execute, who's the audience, break the audience down. That's why we invest in global web index data. Global web index data gives us key touch points and information about media consumption and media behavior of all different types of audiences from all different types of backgrounds, including how people feel in terms of gender, race, religion. So we can say this community or this subject, so a male, Sikh, British, Indian, on average likes to do this and spend their time on mobile and these platforms. So that's where we should be targeting, and these are the targeting demographics we should be including in the campaign. That's not hard to do. It's simple marketing, planning and strategy.
Okay. The theme that we've kind of has come up time and time again as we've been chatting is this idea of brands really needing to know and understand who their audience is. What do you think? We've talked about some examples. What do you think brands need to be considering, thinking about? What can they do so that they can be inclusive and can appear inclusive and can appear like they care about things, but without slipping into that mistake of excluding their kind of loyal brand following?
There's a lot a brand can do, but it's like you said earlier today when we were talking about you're still going to buy the Apple product, but you don't really do much research into how the products are built and sourced. So you don't really, Apple realize they don't need to do that because people are still going to buy into the brand in terms of it's part of our lifestyle now, Apple as a brand. And that's just really good marketing more than anything else. So for brands, it's the bigger brands. The smaller brands don't really get too much involved into it because they, A, don't have the budget, and B, it's not going to have as much of an impact at a smaller stage. Plus, you've got B2C to consider against B2B, and it's more B2C brands, direct-to-consumer brands, that probably get more involved in political, social, or wokeness kind of characterizations in terms of jumping on the bandwagon. Case in point, Nike in 2018 did the Colin Kaepernick campaign, Believing Something. That went on to win an award. Didn't it? In terms of as an actual campaign, because he was the one to take the knee in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So big brands like Nike that sponsor certain players can jump behind that movement and get some recognition for it. And you probably expect it from a brand like Nike and Adidas. You expect the big brands to be doing something about it. But if but not everyone is conscious about it when they think about it. They say they are, but I think in reality they're not. They're still going to buy a product. We all know about Nestle, for example, in terms of nobody probably remembers this story about Nestle giving, baby powder to, women in Africa that didn't have the money to buy it, to trial it, and then couldn't produce, natural milk anymore, but then couldn't afford the baby formula. Where's the ethics around that? But you don't hear that anymore. So it's like, if you really want to find it, you can find it. But the websites and brands need to be very, very clear on their websites. But that's why they have sustainability elements. That's why they talk about ethical sourcing. So we talk about chocolate brands earlier, talking about elements. All that has to be online, and that needs to be part of your brand awareness basic push. But if you're targeting specific customers, then you need to segment your campaigns just to that customer. If you want to hit people that are, as we call them, I don't know, I'm saying, eco-minded or, eco-friendly. So like I'm very eco-minded in terms of what we do as a business, in terms of suppliers we work with to make sure they're offsetting their carbon, then I would like to see an ad from a supplier about what they're doing element, which is why we push out promotional posts, well, not promoted, but organic posts about the impact we're having with the Rainforest Trust. We want our clients and our brands to know that we're making that positive difference. But it's how you go about that kind of statement without getting too political. It is a minefield, and I haven't probably given you a direct answer there, I apologise, but it's subtle and it's planning really what it comes down to, strategy and breaking them down into specific key segments, and it just comes down to data segmentation. Know your audience and who really cares about that, and deliver them that message.
Okay, I want to put a scenario to you now. Tell me what you do in this situation. So this starts off as a bit of a dream situation. So let's say that you get a phone call and they go, "Hello, it's Marvel here. We'd like to work with you." They're producing a new series and they want to really diversify their cast and characters, interpret that how you want. What are you going to do in that situation?
It's like the Apocalypse situation. It got cancelled, didn't it?
Yeah.
First of all, if Marvel called me, I'd be like, "This is Iron Man speaking," just to get their attention. I actually have that on the back of a ice hockey jersey. It says Iron Manny, which actually went out to the States, and a lot of people thank me for. But if Marvel, I mean, it's a hypothetical situation, but I get what you're trying to get at in some scenario, is, again, I would question, like, well, what's the diversity of the cast got to do with anything? It's like, who do you intend to watch the series? Then you can use elements of the cast as part of that to that particular user base. I think where Marvel have gone wrong and is, again, they've alienated their core customers in terms of who went through the whole 10 years of Marvel from Iron Man all the way to Avengers Endgame in terms of that storyline building. I think they started just pushing out way too much content I think they realised they were onto a money pit machine and created way too much content. I haven't watched Apocalypse. I just don't have time for TV anymore. I've got a business to run, and it's been a stressful 8 months. And if I'm sat there watching Apocalypse, I've got work to do. Really, that's my viewpoint of things. So I haven't watched it to give an opinion on it. But if Marvel came back to me, again, it would go back to that same basic. In terms like, right, who do you want to target this to in terms of your audience? Is it everyone? If so, why and what about it? And if so, who? And how can we use content from the series or the cast to resonate with that specific audience? But then make it very clear that this series is for that specific audience and only target that audience. Now, those people that follow Marvel as a brand and like new Marvel content will naturally follow it. But again, it's one of those difficult situations is, do you blanket promote it to all? And then everyone's like, no, that's not the type of Marvel I'm used to. I like this kind of Marvel. But Marvel is a great example because it appeals to so many different types of audiences and people and resonates with people individually in terms of what it is. I think when the Ms. Marvel series came out, my cultural background is Indian, and my parents used to talk about the partition, and a scene within that showcased the partition of what was going on between India and Pakistan. And I was like, well done. That's actually very good inclusivity and good history to showcase in a series where something like that actually was based on true events. So I think, it can be done but in a statistical way, but in that case, realistic, you probably don't expect it, I'll turn them down.
Right.
I'd be like, no. I think that would be, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, too difficult. Your audience are billions of people, and there's no way of promoting this without offending a significant part. So unless you're comfortable with that, and that might impact revenue, I don't know how you would do that unless you did it this way and you're happy to do it this way. But then I just don't like data segmentation to a level where, a whole audience is excluded because of who they are. I think that's wrong, morally and ethically. So even though I'm saying you should do it that way to protect your core audience, and you should, because your core audience is what made you $1 billion company. It's that famous phrase, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And that's where Marvel are. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and there's no simple, this is what they should do, because anyone could then just criticise them. It's like, what do you know? It's not that simple. And it's not a simple answer. But it would take a lot of strategy and research and sitting down with them first and planning before anything could happen.
Okay. Before we finish, important question. The end of your foot is your big...
toe.
Say again?
Toe.
Now say Toblerone.
No. I refuse. Since a child, I call it Toblerone, and I'm going to stick. And I will teach my kids that it's Toblerone one day.
We're done here. We're done here.
This is where the argument has come. Not about wokeness, but how do we pronounce this brand? Although that's the only thing we disagreed on in this conversation. Brilliant. Right. Thank you for those watching. Again, it's an educational piece of podcasting. Everyone's going to have their different opinions and views, and I welcome them. Do comment and feedback. If anything was said in offence, that's not the case. We're just having a frank, honest conversation, talking about a big topic which is impacting how marketing is done now and what is included. So hopefully you resonate, hopefully you have some ideas, do feedback, and we can hopefully answer some of these questions in the future podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and follow us at Mr. Bobble Official, where a lot of these funny clips hopefully from today will come out and you'll be able to see. And we'll catch you on the next episode where I'll be talking about AI in digital marketing, which is a topic I've been wanting to discuss for a long, long time. Thank you very much.